Hi everyone and welcome to the Tactical Tauntaun, where we discuss Star Wars X-Wing, Imperial Assault, Rebellion, and everything Star Wars. And I'm your host Patrick, and with me always is Will, who's off camera today. And we have with us one of our players from the 336 Tauntaun Squadron, Ryan Janeway.
Hey everybody.
Cool. Thanks for being here, man. We appreciate it. Today we want to talk a little bit about Imperial Assault. Ryan is one of our premier players, and has won a couple of store championships, right?
Won a store championship a little earlier this summer, and yeah, that's my achievement so far. Played in nationals 2 weeks ago.
Yep, and did very well. Represented the Tauntauns just amazingly. So Ryan, you now, are you originally from Arizona? I know you came from Arizona to here in North Carolina, right?
I grew up in Texas, lived in Arizona for a couple of years before I moved out to Greensboro about a year ago.
So what brought you to North Carolina?
I moved out here for a job. Needed to move over for new position here. Okay, yeah. So I've been here for about a year, really enjoy it, in this area, and found a great gaming community here in the Triad.
Because you and I met at the Green Spielers board gaming group, and then started doing stuff, and then we played some Imperial Assault together, did a little bit of campaign stuff, and got you into X-Wing, and then you kind of really drove Imperial Assault for everybody here, and we appreciate it. It's a cool game, and I think that you've done a lot for the community, for just Star Wars community in general.
Thanks, appreciate it.
But I will say one thing, that we have it under very good authority that you're not the Star Wars fan that you make out to be, sir.
Interesting.
Yeah, we have found through many records that you are actually the great-great-great-grandfather of Captain Catherine Janeway of the Starship Voyager, which makes you a Star Trek fan. How do you answer these allegations, sir?
These are false rumors. They're not true. Captain Janeway actually has an extra vowel in her name. It's Janeway. Mine's spelled totally different. Sorry.
I think they just added the E.
Fine, fine. I want the truth. I can handle the truth.
What can I say?
Anyway, so let's get back to Imperial Assault, and give me your background into gaming. How did you get started in gaming? Just not necessarily Imperial Assault, but just gaming in general.
I got into what you call the modern board gaming.
Sure.
Probably about 10 years ago.
Wow.
Started off on, your classic gateway games, Settlers of Catan, Ticket to Ride, that sort of stuff. Kind of progressively moved up into more complicated modern board games.
A little bit heavier, I know. I mean, we do a little heavy cardboard thing over here on Wednesday nights, and you're a big part of that.
And so Imperial Assault is a game that came out at the end of 2014, right around Christmas time that year.
Right.
I actually picked up the game when it released. Was super excited about it when I saw all the news and the info about it.
Right.
Got the game. Took me a while to actually get it on the table because it's got kind of a steep barrier to. It's not exactly a pick up and play kind of game. Something you can throw out on a casual night.
Well, I felt like the rules book, I think it's I'm not sure, it's not I don't think it's a very friendly rule book. There's a lot of,
you gotta spend some time with it, to really get it
been done a little better, but and I have a pet peeve about rule books and things, but you know that. Cool. So why don't you let's see. So Imperial Assault, from my experience though, you have two game modes. You have the campaign mode, and then you have the skirmish mode. So the game is played from 2 to 5 players, and just kind of give us a little overview of how a campaign works, and then a skirmish.
Sure. Yeah, the campaign mode is really interesting in this game. It's the mode that would allow you to play with up to 5 players. It lets you do what I would call a one versus many sort of setup. You can have one player who controls all the forces of the Empire, and you might...
So the good guys.
Yeah, exactly. You might think of that player as a bit of a dungeon master role, coming from sort of classic RPG stuff. And then you've got up to 4 other players that can play as rebel heroes. Right. They each control an individual hero character that they select. And a lot of times I describe that campaign mode as it's kind of like a RPG light session.
I like that.
You get your own character. You play through a series of missions that are all connected in an overarching campaign. You've got a connected storyline that goes through all of them. The core set gives you a campaign that probably includes about 10 to 12 missions. And during the course of those missions...
now, there are sub-missions too, right?
Correct. Yeah, each one of those missions is what you would consider like one game for the evening. It's probably going to take you 90 minutes, maybe 2 hours to complete one mission. Mm-hmm. You're going to have a nice little story there. It's going to set up, different objectives for the rebels to try to do. And then each mission, once you've completed it, gives you a chance to kind of upgrade your characters.
Right. So you're going to get experience points, and you can spend those points to buy more upgrades, like better weapons, better
classic
defenses.
RPG kinds of things.
Absolutely.
Get better guns, get better skills, spend some money, all that sort of fun stuff. And it really lets you create a sense of, like this is my character that I'm creating, because you can kind of choose how to build that character over the course of the campaign. So I'm a big fan of the campaign mode. You can have a lot of fun with it. Each of the expansions that they've released since the core set gives you a new campaign setting to play through, a whole new campaign.
And then, of course, more upgrade cards, more characters.
Yeah.
And,
tons of stuff.
And the models are amazing. Like when I busted my copy open and there was an ATST in there, I was like, holy crap, this is awesome. Yeah. Like, really?
That's one of the most fun things as an Imperial player in the campaign mode. You have a lot of hidden information, right? You're, like I said, kind of a dungeon master. There's going to be surprises and unexpected turns that happen for the rebel players. And so it's just a lot of fun when you are sitting there at the table and the rebel players think they're doing really well. They're just picking your stormtroopers off. They're knocking them down. And then all of a sudden you can kind of reach behind you and drop an ATST onto the table. Or here comes Darth Vader that they didn't know about. And it's the look on people's faces. It's great. It's great.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It is a lot of fun to do that. That's how I've even played the game as well. I've done a few skirmish matches, but campaign with my son and some of his friends, and it is a lot of fun to pull out Vader and pop him on the table in the middle of everything, and they just go, "Oh no!"
You get all those eye-bugging moments. You're like, what?
Now, I know that I had heard that they were working on a computerized version of the one person, so that everybody could play. Like they did with Mansions of Madness.
Correct.
I guess.
Yeah. So Imperial Assault is actually sort of, you could call it the offspring of one of Fantasy Flight's earlier games called Descent.
Right.
So this is your typical sort of fantasy elves and goblins and that sort of setting.
Game.
Yeah. And so they had a very similar game there. Descent was sort of just the campaign mode from Imperial Assault. So Imperial Assault came out of Descent. They tweaked and streamlined a lot of those rules, and so if you are a Descent player, you're going to see a lot of similarities with Imperial Assault. Fantasy Flight has released what they call a companion app for Descent, which, like you're describing.
They did it for Mansions of Madness.
Yeah,
is that a
FFG?
Yep.
FFG.
Yeah,
I thought so.
And it basically automates the role of that dungeon master.
Sure.
So you can
I know
play
in
it
Mansions of Madness, it was if the dungeon master, for lack of a better word, made a mistake in the setup, it ruined the entire game.
Right.
And adding that in has made amazing. Like, I love second edition of that. So I'm hoping that this. I know that it doesn't. Like, if you made a mistake in this one, it doesn't do like Mansions of Madness did, where it kind of just destroys the entire story.
The whole thing off. Yeah.
But I just think it's cool to have that, because then you got this more interaction. You get everybody playing. You don't have one person have to sit there and spend a lot of time setting up, because that's. I mean, I play Dungeons and Dragons. I'm a dungeon master, and I spend a lot of time each week getting my campaign ready for the next week.
Sure.
So,
I know a lot of people are looking forward to that app, because it gives you, it almost creates a third play mode for Imperial Assault, because now you can play the game fully cooperative, right? Instead of like I said, this one versus many kind of setup, you can have 4 players sit down, all playing together against this automated, app. So it's been in the works for a long time. It's one of the most commonly asked questions to FFG about Imperial Assault, and I
think they're just trying to get it right.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a lot of work that goes into these things, and I'm sure a lot of beta testing, and hopefully we're at beta testing at this point, because I would like to see it come out. I like the game. I wish I could get it on the table more. We've started the campaign, and hopefully you can get back over here soon.
Yeah,
we can continue working on that, because I like it, I enjoy it, and I want to play it more because Star Wars is just the bomb. Skirmish. So skirmish is the next mode, and this is a one-on-one game.
Yeah, skirmish mode is that real sort of heads-up competitive. It works off of the same, what I would call foundation of the game, but it's a very different experience.
So you build a team or a list like you would in X-Wing. You have points that go into that.
Yeah.
How many points are you allowed?
Yeah. So standard rules is you've got 40 squad points to work with when you select your faction, and then you start building your squad of deployment cards.
And so your factions are Imperial, Rebels, and what's the other one called?
And they call them mercenary.
Mercenaries. It's not Scum and Villainy.
No,
mercenaries.
Don't get confused. Yeah.
Okay, so they're called mercenaries.
Yep.
And that is pretty much the most popular build, isn't it?
I would say right now, after the latest expansion, big box expansion that came out was called Jabba's Palace.
I think it was cool.
Jabba's Realm. Sorry, Jabba's Realm is the name of the box, and it brought a ton of very good, very efficient figures for all 3 factions. And I would say currently the game is
balanced.
I might use that word, but
I have a specific reason to ask this, but we'll get into that later.
I would say the game is dominated by figures that came from that latest big box expansion.
Sure.
Jabba's Realm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in skirmish, you have a set way you lay the map out, and there are different scenarios.
Yep. Yeah. So as far as organized play goes, thinking about FFG's tournament setup, they keep 3 maps active at all times. Mm-hmm. And so every time you buy an expansion, or you buy one of the small blister packs, an individual character expansion, each of those expansions is going to come with its own map sheet, which would allow you to, it's going to give you the instructions on how to build out a skirmish map and 2 different missions to play on that map. And so the way that FFG does this is as they release new content, they rotate their active skirmish maps. There's always 3 active at a time. They rotate between these 3 about every 4 months or so. And typically as a new wave of content is released, you'll see them update their 3 active tournament maps, and they're going to pick one of those latest releases, to be the new one of the new tournament maps. So you always got 3 different maps that you could be playing on, and each map has 2 different missions that could play on it. So 6 different missions effectively.
So then there are 2 missions laid out, and the person with the initiative chooses the mission,
so in a tournament setting, the way that they would set that up is they would take the 6 different mission cards. Each mission's got its own individual card, gives you kind of the briefing and then the instructions. They'll take those 6 mission cards, shuffle them up, and then randomly reveal one.
Okay.
And then whichever mission you've revealed, you're going to have to now get that map set up, which Imperial Assault features a lot of cardboard. You got a lot of puzzle piecing of these maps together. So one of the most common things you'll see in tournament settings is people will, FFG will sell you a printed playmat. Similar.
Of course they will.
Why wouldn't they?
So they have the best, they have a great business model, right?
Oh yeah.
I mean, you buy an expansion, whether it's in X-Wing miniatures or whether it's an IA, and they give you some upgrade cards with it. But then there's a character or a ship that might not be that great, but man, you've got to buy the ship because the upgrade cards in, or you got to buy the character, and those upgrade cards only come with that one. What am I saying? And then now they make now they sell these maps. They're already pre-printed, right?
Yep.
And you just lay it out and you're ready to go. It takes all the money I set up, and then they charge you $20 from those maps.
Yep.
I love their business model.
Yeah, those mats do make a world of difference. I'll tell
these
you.
guys are amazing.
Yeah, in a tournament setting where everything is on the clock and you've only got a certain amount of time to play that game, being able to just roll out that play mat versus digging out your bag of cardboard puzzle pieces and trying to set them all up makes a big difference.
Oh, I got ready to get out Imperial Assault about a month ago to play it, and I forgot how much cardboard was in it, and I started looking at something, and I was going to organize everything and try to get it ready to start bringing into the game sort of play, and I was like, yeah, never mind.
Yeah.
I mean, I literally was. It was just so much, and I don't have. I mean, all I have is the basic. I don't have, there's nothing I can really build.
Yeah, you pull it out, and that's the one thing that I'll say is the setup.
Yep.
When I played campaign at home, just the setup of the maps.
Yep.
It's like, okay, you guys go away. Give me about 20 minutes to get everything placed.
Yeah.
All right, come on back.
Yeah. It was like when I was a kid. We'd play Axis and Allies. We get the board set up, and by the time we were done, we're like, all right, let's go shoot hoops for a while.
Right, take a break.
Do something different.
One of the things that I've found that works great for me to help that process is I'll use an old CD binder, right? These old kind of binders where you use, for those people who remember CDs, you used to stick your CDs in there, you store 20, 40, 80 CDs.
The slime little pockets.
Yep, and so I'll use that as my tile storage binder.
Okay.
So I will take all my tiles. They're each tile has an individual number on it, right? And that's how
I can't see those. They're too tiny.
They're pretty small, but that's how they will. You'll get your map sheet and it'll say you need tiles 1, 7, 9, 12. List out all the
then
numbers.
You get those little bitty connector things, and I can never figure out which ones to use.
So a CD binder is a pretty good storage solution. You can number everything sequentially, and then you pull out your map sheet.
Okay, so you have them in there from lowest to highest.
In order.
That is a good idea. So when a new expansion comes out, do they restart the numbering sequence, or do they get higher and continue on?
Right. So each expansion restarts the numbering on those tiles, and then they use a individual sort of logo associated with that expansion to help you separate them.
And so then, but they're not going to combine like Hoth pieces with like the Java pieces, are they?
No, so far I haven't seen maps that combine two different expansions. For example, there's the Return to Hoth expansion, and then there's the Java's Realm expansion. Haven't seen maps that would be kind of interesting too, right? Have a snowy Hoth field outside of Java's palace or something. But what you will see is
they must have lost both their sons, right?
What you will see is a big box expansion that, in order to build a map associated with that expansion, you'll need to use tiles from, for example, Java's Realm as well as the core set.
Okay, so they're forcing you about no. It's a smart business plan, like we talked before.
Sure.
I mean, I would rather it be cheaper, but you got to respect a business plan like that. I mean, it's a good way of continuing to get people into it. And as long as we're making movies and cartoons, we're going to have more and more content to put on the board for both X-Wing and Imperial Assault, as well as Rebellion.
Yep.
And everything we got coming up. So you went to Nova and you kicked butt, man. I mean, like
you did okay.
Yeah.
So you finished in the top 4. What place did you actually come in? Did you come in 3rd or 4th?
4th.
Okay.
4th place out of how many?
Out of how many people?
And now my understanding was when we started day 1, I believe there were 43 people signed up.
Right.
It's not 100% confirmed, but that's what I remember hearing.
That's what Terry Floyd was telling us as well.
Okay.
It was about 40
something.
40 something.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, and then you played day 1. Tell us about day 1.
Yeah. So, first of all, this was my first time at.
Well, not only that, but what did you play?
Yeah.
If you don't mind, you don't have to give specific details.
Sure.
Maybe, what did you play?
Yeah. First time going to a big convention like this for me. I had not attended anything like Gen Con or. Unfortunately, didn't.
So you didn't really know what to expect.
Steel Open last year. Yeah, this is my first anything bigger than a regional tournament. So I was really impressed with the organization of the Nova Open and with FFG's side of it. I did see that they just recently came out and said they had over 2,000 people in attendance at this one.
And so they did. They had X-Wing, they had Imperial Assault, they had Rebellion, they had Destiny. Did they do the card game as well?
They had the Star Wars LCG card game. Yeah, all of these were the nationals tournaments for all these FFG games. In addition to all the other War Machine, Warhammer.
Right. So that because it's not
Yeah.
just their Star Wars stuff; it's their whole tabletop.
Yeah, they had a whole floor dedicated to just Warhammer, War Machine
Right,
stuff. Which
right.
I'm barely familiar with those games, but it was impressive to see everything they had.
Wow.
So as
That's
far
amazing.
as the Imperial Assault tournament goes, day one was on Saturday. 43 players. We played 6 rounds on that first day. I played an Imperial list, which if you'd asked a lot of Imperial Assault players beforehand, hey, do you think it's a good idea to take an Imperial list to the Nationals if you want to do well? They would have probably laughed at you and said, "Get out of here."
Well, I did notice when we were sent the top 16 list that you were the only Imperial player. So I say that makes you one of the best players out there, dude.
I'll someone
They're all saying it's bad,
Yeah.
and you take it to the. I'm just saying.
Someone at the tournament came up and slapped me on the back and said, "Hey, man, this makes you the best Imperial player in the nation." I was like, "Well, I'll take it."
Yeah. That's a great way to look at it.
I'll take it. There were a couple other people, I think, that brought Imperial lists. I didn't actually see them or play against them, but I think at least one of those people dropped out maybe after a couple rounds. I just sort of heard about it from other people. So there was not a lot of Imperial showing there.
Okay.
Right now, the game is, like I said, dominated by Jabba's Realm figures. So the vast majority of squads that people bring are coming out of that mercenary faction.
Yeah.
A lot of really strong units in there right now. And then you get a few people bringing Rebel lists, and almost always those Rebel lists are based around Jedi Luke and the Elite Alliance Rangers.
Okay.
Both figures that came out with the Jabba's Realm wave also. So, I've been playing the game pretty competitively for a while. I had played around with the mercenary lists. I had seen things, I'd seen what you have to do to make that list work. And I didn't particularly enjoy that play style. Those lists are driven by a lot of command cards, namely coming off of this Hunter trait. There's a lot of super strong cards that come out in Jabba's Realm. So if you're going to play that mercenary list, you've got to bring a lot of these cards, and you're kind of waiting to draw these cards that you can unload these big sort of mega attacks.
Okay. So that brings me to another thing. So how do you feel about, and just I've only played like maybe 3 skirmish games ever.
Yeah.
So I kind of felt like, and not by not knowing enough about the tactics behind it all, but I really felt like that there was a lot of luck driven in this from your card draw. I know that you get some mitigation from things and you get some dice mitigation, but it seems very luck. And it really felt like to me that there was really no place I could get to on the board where I could shoot somebody, but they couldn't shoot me very often.
That's true. It is a difficult thing to do. As far as that goes, I'll say that Imperial Assault to me is primarily a very spatial game, right? Similar to how X-Wing is in a different way, but both games are very spatial, right?
And so I'm glad to hear you say, because I didn't get that, but I haven't played enough.
Sure.
And I haven't talked to anybody enough about the strategy because it didn't really feel like there was this spatial thing to it. But I know Terry was talking about the importance of the grid squares and understanding them and that.
It's a big thing, and when you first sit down and play the game, it's one of those things that's maybe not immediately obvious how to use that spatial component of the game to your advantage.
Okay.
And it does take
Totally
some
makes
practice.
sense.
Yeah, definitely takes some practice. But a lot of times I kind of think about Imperial Assault almost similar to chess. Right, where you've got your grid system that you're playing on. Imperial Assault, you might think of it as a game where you choose your chess pieces, right? Okay. You've got a big toolbox of all these different chess pieces you could choose to bring to the board, and you have to decide which ones do you want to take and how are they going to work together and and play out in your strategy. There definitely is that sense of randomness in the game that comes from the dice. FFG loves that dice combat.
But they do a great job in all their games of dice mitigation. Now, I will say this. When I play the game, if somebody doesn't tell me the results of all the dice, I had no clue. I could roll and have the best roll. Oh, you got nothing. Okay, great. I got nothing. Oh, darn.
Yep, there is definitely a sense of this mental...
I feel overwhelmed with it a little bit.
There is definitely a level of mental arithmetic that has to go on with these...
Oh, there's my problem there.
with the combat dice in this game. It's not immediately obvious when you throw those dice out on the table what that means and what that equals, right? And
Because
you've
I'm
gotta
sitting here
do-
looking at my cards, and I've got the
You got the surges.
Surges, that's it.
right. So you're gonna have to do a bit of conversion with these surges to figure out what your values are, and then you might have command cards you're holding that are gonna change those values,
Sure.
add things, take things
And
away.
I think that's what makes the games really cool, is being able to really surprise your opponent. Because
True.
when you're playing X-wing, if you know the dials of your opponent's ships like you should, and you've got them sitting in front of a rock, they're stressed, the only 3 moves they can take, and of those they can only take 1 or 2, and now you know exactly what you can do.
Right. Yep.
But if you don't know
All
what's
of their-
coming out of somebody's
Yeah.
hand from those command cards, I mean, you know what the possibilities can be, because if it's very much like
Yeah.
Magic Gathering. I mean, you know what can come out of the deck, but you don't know what they're holding.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I was.
Now,
gonna
are there cards that allow you to look into the person's hand?
Yeah, you've got a couple of those. That style of cards that let you pull things out of the opponent's hand, look at the opponent's hand.
There's
that
also
kinda
things that allow you to manipulate your deck, like a scrying type
a little
thing,
bit,
where
yeah.
you can
Yeah.
throw things to the bottom and look at top. Look at a couple on the
Yep.
top and keep one of them, or put them in any order on top. You have
Yeah.
those kind of things in there as well.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, that is one of the aspects that I wanted to touch on. That I think is definitely a big difference between X-Wing and games like Armada. Is you've got that level of hidden information
Sure.
in Imperial Assault, right? Like you said, when you sit down and play X-Wing, you know exactly what the other player has got in front of them.
Yeah.
I mean, unless they just do something completely unobvious, which you have to do sometimes, and that's But
Yeah.
other than that, if you know their dials,
Yep.
you know what their dial looks like, you know what you can do.
Yeah, Imperial Assault has got this command deck, 15 cards that each player builds beforehand and brings, and the opponent is not going to know what is in those 15 cards.
All right, that's it. I'm sold, honey. I'm spending another $1,000 on another game. Don't divorce me, please.
But that is also something that makes the game fun and exciting, right?
Right.
Is bringing your own tricks and trying to counter the other guy's tricks. Yeah.
So you took that Imperial list and you went through day one. What was your record after day one?
So day one, I ended up 4-2. The losses that I had on day one, my second game, I played against Paul Heaver. You might
Right.
recognize that name as
Paul Heaver won the X-Wing
Nationals.
And
I heard he's pretty good at
Yeah.
some games.
he's okay.
Yeah.
He's all right at it. Whatever.
So he played a great Imperial Assault game. He was one of the few people using the Jedi Luke and Alliance Rangers
But
list.
did you beat him?
No, I did not. That was my first loss of the day. But I can feel good about losing to someone like that. So,
Sure, absolutely. He's a really good gamer.
Yeah, I went through the day. I think in my round 5 match, I had my second loss at that point. And so after round 5, I was 3-2.
Okay.
And I think we had all kind of figured out that in order to make the top 16 cut, you needed to be at least at 4-2.
Okay.
Or
Now, you have a margin of victory type thing. You have a timer on this game.
Right.
Is there-
Each round is 65 minutes.
Okay.
65, oh, so it was pretty low. I thought it was about 35, but maybe I'm thinking of
So
one
you
game.
go to the end of 65. Let's say I haven't wiped. We haven't completed the objectives, or we have not wiped the other
Eliminated.
person's force off.
Yeah.
So then we go to is it like in X-Wing a margin of victory?
Well, essentially you've got victory points that you're counting up. Every
Okay.
time you eliminate a figure, that figure is going to be worth a certain amount of victory points. Every time you do a mission objective, that's
Yeah.
going to be worth a certain amount of victory points.
So this is interacting with the consoles and things
Yeah,
like that,
each
or
one's gonna be a
picking
little
something up and
different.
getting it to a space on the
Yeah.
board that considers it off the board or whatever.
So usually, it's clear one person's at X amount of points, the other person's at Y amount of points, and when you hit that 65-minute time limit, they're going to say, okay, this is the final round. So if you've just started a round, for example, you'll get to play that round out to the end, and then once you hit the end of the round phase, game's over. Look at victory point totals, and whoever's highest is the winner for that match.
How do you work out if there's a tie?
That is complicated.
Do we need to do a
Actually,
whole,
man, we just
wait,
pump dice.
Yeah.
Wait, so do we just need to do a whole nother video?
You might.
If it's that
It would
complicated.
be interesting to see because there's about 2 or 3 levels of tiebreakers you have to go to, and occasionally I have seen them go to this second and third level of tiebreaker, and every time it happens, there's always somebody who's pulling out the books and flipping through the pages frantically, trying to figure out what are we supposed to do.
Decide if they want to know if they won.
Yeah. The first level, I believe, of tiebreaker just goes off of number of points from defeated figures. So essentially, if I have killed more, if I've eliminated more of your figures or a greater cost from your figures than you have of mine.
Okay, so cost-wise, what the cost not necessarily what they're worth point back.
Right. Yeah,
Got it. Okay,
Then
so
that would be the first
cost to put it on the table. Got
Right. Sometimes you might hit another tie on that level and have to go to the second one. Yeah. So might need to do a follow-up video if you really want to dig into that.
I think we
75-minute video on how you figure out tiebreakers.
So you go into day 2. This is the top 16, and you and Terry Floyd both made it.
Well, yeah. The interesting thing about day 1 was
sorry.
I had lost that round 5 match, and then was going into my final match of the day, knowing that I needed to win that one in order to make the top 16 cut.
Now, did you just have that? I mean, like when you say you had to win, was there a certain type of victory you needed to get?